tax regime may trigger capital fight. That's coming from ex-Nasima chair. You want to find out that on page 8 of the Daily Trust paper. Delayed trials undermine rule of law. Governor Yusuf is saying that on page 13. You want to read more about it. And there's a cartoon here, but I'll leave you to find that out as well. So get your Vanguard newspaper this morning and know what's trending. But let's head on to the next newspaper, which is The Nation newspaper. And The Nation opens with Oshun ex SSG Adoti dumps Aregbesol's group. Okay, intrigue over 2026 tickets. I have said it over and over that 2027 is going to be a very, very interesting year. You've never seen the kind of politicking that is going to happen in Nigeria. Just wait for it. So find that story on page 29 of The Nation newspaper, and we can move on to the next story. Dangote pumps 50 million liters of petrol per day into the market. Well, capitalism there, but is it doing the work? Yes, it is. And are we grateful to Dangote for seeing this vision and pushing it and sustaining it? Yes. Because left for just the government, I'm not sure that we would be where we want to be when it comes to petroleum. So it's big ups to Dangote all the time for doing this. Tinubu and Audu left a template for, Tinubu says Audu left a template for good governance in Kogi. Okay, page 27. Well, let the governance also translate into rescuing some of the people who've just been kidnapped in Kogi State. How to halt escalating insecurity. Build nationhood. Bakari says that on page 5 of The Nation newspaper. It's now total war on terrorists. Okay. How is it total war if we still have all of this insurgency and insecurity ongoing? Well, you can find that out on page 4 of The Nation newspaper. Airstrikes pound criminals in Katsina, Borno, and abductions in Kogi, Kwara, Sokoto. You can find that all of that on page 4 of The Nation newspaper as well. And then we see Abuja court issues orders restraining police from drug cox Abuja and Lagos properties, including Nestor Power. Well, there is an issue here on The Nation newspaper. There's an order, so it's obvious on the first page of the newspaper. So you can grab yours and read more about it. But let's head on to the next paper this morning, where we have New Telegraph. Tax financial institutions contributions to VAT up to 37% to 20, which translates to 203.24 billion naira. We also see again that Dangote refinery is set to supply 1.5 billion liters of fuel monthly. Page 28, which is kudos. I've said that kudos before, but it's kudos again to Dangote. Still on the New Telegraph, I beg your pardon. Government abduct pastor, wife and others in Kogi Church. Bridesmaids in Sokoto. Find that on page 2, 3, 4, and 29 of New Telegraph. Quite a sad story. I do not know how to react to this, but other papers are talking about it, and so you might want to really grasp. I know that we are doing a lot of filtering and trying to say, oh, I don't want this to get into my head, but whether you like it or not, every day, directly or indirectly, you're being hit by all the news and stories of insecurity and banditry happening in our country. So we are part of the solution. I think that's the new light we want to see ourselves. And how can you be part of the solution? First, you're staying abreast with the information, you're knowing what to do, you're following up with cases, and you're bringing it to the fore when it happens. How do you ruin a day of joy for a couple by kidnapping, by abducting them? How does it make sense? Abduct pastor, wife, bride, bridesmaid, children. How does it even make sense? Where are we headed as a country? Why is insecurity thriving so much? So much. Well, all of that you can find on New Telegraph. The next story here is lawyers conflicting orders ending public confidence in judiciary. That's from Osigwe, who is an SAN, and is saying lawyers conflicting orders is ending or eroding public confidence in judiciary. You can find that story on page 14 and 16 of New Telegraph. We also see ex-PFN President Omobude warns against armed resistance by Christians, back state police and orders. Find the story on page 7, because a lot of people are saying that are encouraging widespread of fire use and firearm permits. So people are now saying they want to be able to defend themselves, because if everybody has a gun, then nobody's a target, right? However, ex-PFN president is saying, no, that's not the way. Let's work with the police more. Let's have more police, deployed to communities to help fight this insecurity that we have. But I know there's a lot of hit back at that statement too. But you can find that out on page 7. 4 killed, 10 injured in shooting at child's birthday party in U.S. 4 killed, 10 injured in shooting at child's birthday party in the U.S. Find that on page 4, and they had to use Donald Trump's picture because every time you see US, it has to be Donald Trump. And one would wonder, was Trump at the birthday party? We'll find out about that. But that's a sad one. Really sad occurrence. It's happening in Nigeria. It's happening in US. What is going on? What really is going on? We can send another story. Delta North leader rejects proposal to add Anioma State to Southeast. Page 6 of the New Telegraph. Guinea-Bissau coup, sanction election riggers as well. Obi is telling ECOWAS, do not just allow it go, sanction the election riggers as well. That's Peter Obi says on page 2 of the New Telegraph. State-owned airline signposts new era in Nigeria aviation. And I totally agree. Look at the way Ibom Air is doing so well. Look at the way Ibom Air is doing so. And now there's now Cali Air. Look at how Cali Air is also, coming up real quick. We must encourage. There's Enugu Air too. I think this year, like most of the places that I like to be to, just said, oh, we are hitting the aviation industry really hard. And they went all in. Governor Umoino, Governor Prince Basio too from Cross River State, then Peter Mba, my governor from Enugu State. They just went into the airspace and said, we have to fix this aviation industry, and they did, from reconstruction, renovation, and even adding more innovative tools. So we have Enugu Air, we have Cali Air, we now have Ibom Air. We want to see more state-owned airlines. That's what we want to see to encourage development. Well, let us move on to the next newspaper, which is the Punch newspaper. For want of time, NNPCL battles 8 trillion naira and outstanding debts. Bandits kidnap 419 2-week rampage. Find that story on page 2 of the Punch. State assemblies move to debate state police insecurity. Page 7. And you also see 828 liters of petrol imported to avert nationwide shortage. You find that story on page 51 of the Punch newspaper. And we also see, I won't settle for VP slot, says Amechi. Okay, again, interesting times ahead. That's on page 7 or 8 of the Punch newspaper. And we can see a quote here from the Chief of Defense Staff, who is saying, this nation is only as strong as the initiative we show, the courage we carry, the understanding we build, and the loyalty we give. General Olufemi Oluyede, who is Chief of Defense Staff. I think we must go with that word today. And then the penultimate paper for the day is the Guardian newspaper. And it opens up with 42,000 schools still vulnerable despite $30 million saved school funds. Again, where is the place of evaluation monitoring? Where? It's not about releasing the huge funds. How do we track the progress? How do we ensure that what these funds were meant to do are done? We can't keep releasing funds. Imagine 42,000 schools still vulnerable despite $30 million saved school funds. How are the schools saved? How are the facilities, provided? There is no monitoring. There's no accountability. And so we'll keep getting stories like this. We must move from this place. There's a public notice here. Nestor Limited and Nekonde Energy Limited are not under any receivership. Anyone who deals with the purported receiver and manager, Mr. Bubakar Sulugambari, SAN, does so at his or her owner's risk. Okay. That public notice is well placed on the Guardian newspaper. You want to read more about it. And it's signed by the management of Nestor Limited and management of Nekonde Energy Limited. Okay, looks like there's a bit of chaos. Anyway, fresh abductions, killing test Tinubu's security emergency and heightens anxiety. Find that story on page 6. But let's go to the last paper for the day. We have Blueprint newspaper with the story, exit from FATF Gweli saved Nigeria $30 billion investment loss, Cardozo says on page 15 of the Blueprint newspaper this morning. We also see beef up security around schools nationwide. Professor Wale Soyinka is telling the FG, okay, foreign capital inflows hit 20.98 billion in 10 months. That's on the business side, and you'll find that story on still page 15. And in sports now, we see AFCON friendly. Salah and Mamouche may miss Egypt friendly with Super Eagles. What's the problem? You can find out on page 48 of the Blueprint newspaper. Your days are numbered, terrorists. That's the president of Nigeria, Tinubu, saying to terrorists, your days are numbered. Nigerians can't wait for that to happen. Ibadan, DEC to install 55,000 free meters, cautions against bypass and extortion. Laudable one, free meters to be installed, 55,000. Laudable, but I hope it doesn't come back to the payment somehow. Anyway, we also see terrorism took root. Okay, we've seen that story, but there's also a repeat on Blueprint. Terrorism took root on your watch. President replies to Obasanjo. I do not also think that this is the time to be trading words. This is more time to ensure that nobody takes the blame. What should be on the table is how do we ensure that our country is safe, that Nigeria is indeed a sovereign nation that it claims to be. This is not time for banters and exchange. We want to see practically how our borders are secured, how our schools are safe, how our communities and farms are safeguarded. We do not want more stories of banditry. We do not want more stories of abductions and ransoms here and there. We just want a country that is safe for its citizens. And that's the much we can take this morning on Newspaper Review right here on Idea TV. I've been Chinatu.